That's most definitely, man. It's the one and the two right there. You know what I'm saying? And with that, Shalom Yahweh, Shalom Yahweh, Shabbat all of Israel. It's the ISUPK Kentucky. We come out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Most definitely under Commander General Yohana. And this is our Monday history class. I am Officer Asar, Officer Hawamar. We're going to get into some history, we're going to get into some history, break it down. We do have a chat. If there's any questions, agreeing, disagreeing about anything we say, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll do our best to answer it. If not, we will have that answer next class. You know what I'm saying? We will have it next class, either scripture breakdown class or even a Lashawan Kodash class, or maybe one of the brothers in one of the other classes can also break it down. So, Lakia, before you start, brothers, let me most definitely plug the lecture we got October 22nd is coming up. October 21st, we're going to have a camp on 4th Street live. We're inviting all Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians to come, man. Come out there and hear the truth, man. Lord willing, man, there's going to be some heavy hitters there. Come see these brothers and sisters you see on YouTube. Go check them out live. And then on the 22nd, we're going to have a lecture. The lecture is dealing with white supremacy and it's dealing with Christianity. They are both the same. We will show you in this lecture how Christianity is white supremacy and white supremacy is also Christianity. That's and right. We're dealing with, of course, white supremacy in America. With that, let's get it in, bro.
All right, come with con, sir. And I'm going to get into a little bit. Well, the first article is going to be about George Zimmerman and what's been going on with him for the last 10 years. And then we're going to get into the history of racial profiling in America.
No sign of Christ.
Now, this article is from this year. This is from NBC. Zimmerman's life checkered with domestic disputes, lawsuits, and controversy in the 10 years since Trayvon Martin's death. This is from Sanford, Florida. In the 10 years since George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin, he has remained embroiled in controversy. 2 months after his July 2013 acquittal, Zimmerman's wife, Shelley, had filed for divorce, called 911 to report Zimmerman had assaulted her and her father and threatened her with a gun.
The hero, the Good Samaritan.
You don't think it was the same gun, do you? It's a lot.
It's a lot.
A 911 call, he just threatened all of us with a firearm and he's going to shoot us. Zimmerman was not arrested after police said they couldn't find enough evidence to press charges.
Wow.
Now, Salakia, sir, if I may, you would think if it was a white woman he had threatened, the police would have been all over there. They would have been all through there.
Absolutely.
2 months later, Zimmerman was arrested in another domestic dispute after a girlfriend, Samantha, said he had pointed a gun at her. You just broke a glass table, broke my sunglasses, and you're pointing a gun in my face. She heard saying on 911 audio. In late 2013, Zimmerman sold a painting of an American flag, sold for over $100,000. Now, Salakia, sir, if I may, this man was acquitted for murdering a brother in cold blood, which is the history of America, if I may, sir.
Absolutely.
And then sold a painting of an American flag for over $100,000.
Yeah. And if I may, I believe did he finally sell the gun that killed Trayvon Martin? Because I know it was on the market for an extraordinary price.
I believe he did, sir.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary price that he actually he sold the gun for. And like you said, it's the history of America, man. And it's so sad as a people that us as Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, we just, it's gotten to the point where we'll start making excuses. We'll say we don't value our lives, so why should they, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had that theory about any other people, man, it just wouldn't fly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that women don't value themselves, so of course they should be raped and murdered.
Right.
You can't say that, and why would you? It's literally blaming the victim. And that is what we have been in this country. We have been a victim of a violent, brutal marriage because we decided, to after our chance of release, we decided to stay in a relationship with our abusers.
Mm-hmm. And if I may, you let Black conservatives tell it, or Hispanic conservatives tell it. We're not victims of this place at all. Everything that happens to us is because of our own choices that we made in this country.
And I want you to really break down something and think about this. Now we know that Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians are the Lord's chosen people, but many of them don't. Once you start breaking down who these people are that say the things like that, the people that like Candace Owens and these type of people that say things like that. Well, she describes herself as a West Indian. She's of West Indies stock.
Okay.
So she doesn't see herself as Black. She sees herself as something different. So whenever oppression comes up, she wants to distance herself from that to be different than Black people. And if you start really breaking down all of these, these Sambos and Aunt Jemimas, you're gonna see that they're Israelites. You see what I'm saying? But they don't think so because of their so-called genetic makeup. Do that make sense? Most High Christ. Most High Christ. I'm going to have to break that down.
In early 2015, Zimmerman was again charged with domestic assault after throwing a wine bottle at a girlfriend. Once again, no charges were filed.
I got a quick question. This is news. I guarantee you, most people that have watched this have never heard of this. Mm-hmm. This is not on the nightly news. Mm-hmm. Trust me, if OJ had a domestic violence with a woman, it would be, I'm talking about headline news. Right. You see what I'm saying? But like you're saying, and I know the point you're making is Zimmerman, crickets. Mm-hmm.
And if I could, sir, something else a lot of people haven't heard, and this is still amazing to me, is that Zimmerman's mother is actually what they call Afro-Peruvian.
Yes.
Now we know in the truth that means that she is an Israelite from the tribe of Asher.
Absolutely.
Right. So my question to you, sir, if you can bust it down for me a little bit, if Zimmerman's mother is a black woman, and most of America based race either on complexion or what they call the one drop rule. Mm-hmm. Why didn't the media just spin it as a typical black on black crime when he murdered Trayvon Martin?
That's very simple. It's because Zimmerman is considered a hero. Mm-hmm. It's heroic mm-hmm. that he stood up to that black man mm-hmm. and killed him. They called him a hero. So they can't talk about his mama. Mm-hmm. They know. Mm-hmm. No, they want him to be white. Mm-hmm. A white man kills an unarmed black man. That's the narrative. Mm-hmm. And for something to be so bad, they love to say it. Right. They love to spin it. Right. Another white man has killed an unarmed black because it does something to them. Right. For an unarmed black child, especially, to be killed. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that Zimmerman most definitely comes from an Israelite woman. Mm-hmm. America would usually spin that as a black and Hispanic situation. Mm-hmm. They would have quickly said he wasn't white, he was Hispanic. Mm-hmm. He wasn't white. This is Hispanic and black crime. Mm-hmm. But it was such a heroic thing. See, let me say it this way. Anything that upsets black people, white people enjoy. I know it's hard and it's difficult, but anything that harms black, Hispanic, and Native Indian people, like when those children were at the border and the Hispanic brothers and sisters was crying and all of that, they kept the camera on them. Hmm. It just made their news cycle so beautiful to see these people in pain. They don't show a black and brown success. Mm-hmm. They show black and brown pain. It does something to them, and if y'all don't believe that, just watch the news tomorrow. The news should be called the bad news. You see what I'm saying? Because they'll tell you about a shooting here, a shooting there, a shooting there, leaving out rapes and family murders and rape, babies raped, mm-hmm. and all of these things, but they'll quickly go to where black on black crime or black on Hispanic crime is prevalent, because that's the big story.
That's the only story, if I may.
I mean, that's what they promote. Mm-hmm. And I understand, we have an issue that needs to be fixed. But make no mistake about it, white people kill white people. I mean, I don't know what this thing about black. Matter of fact, they didn't have white on white crime stats until recently. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even a thing.
Well, Salakia, sir, if I may, wasn't World War I and II white on white crime?
I mean, yes. The Civil War. The American and English War, the American and Spanish War, the French War. I mean, the white on white crime is on this soil is uncomparable. When the Italians had their white on white crime thing going on, it's blockbuster movies.
Right.
I believe Sopranos is one of the biggest shows ever. It's glorified. It's so honorable. When they was doing drive-by shooters.
And so, like I said, if I made those was our favorite movies back in the 80s and 90s, man.
Well, of course, we act like our oppressor. I mean, we talk about blacks and Hispanics doing drive-bys. Where they get that from? No drive-bys. When the black folks were doing no drive-bys in the 20s.
If I may, sir, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah. Wow. If I may, Murder Inc. I mean, they glorify that. Murder Inc. is glorified. Because, and then if you watch the movie The Gangs of New York, did you see how they just glorified it?
Come.
But in colors and the black movies, they just a bunch of dummies. It's a bunch of idiots. But the white gangs are just so political and powerful, and there's such a meaning to it. And that's what we're gonna get into in that lecture, because all of that is white supremacy.
Come.
That's exactly what it is. That everything they do is white. Their color isn't white. Their skin isn't white, but it's the word. Perfect, pure, innocent. And the biggest one, innocent. So the things that they do that are foul, it's innocent. It's just a white crime. It's a white lie. You see what I'm saying? It's a lie.
And if I may, sir, what you're bringing out is so heavy, because that terminology of white person doesn't even come into the English language until the late 1700s.
Of course. Yeah, of course. You see, and I'm going to save most of it for the lecture, of course, but you got to understand something. White supremacy works because someone felt inferior. I want y'all to think about that. You have to feel some form of inferior to have the white supremacy. Black supremacy to me is a total different thing. And I know y'all but I can prove it. I can prove it. This isn't the time, but trust me, I can prove it. But I will simply say this. White supremacy is an action. Black supremacy is a reaction. And I'll just leave it there.
Come. In those first 3 years following his trial, in addition to the dramas in his own personal life, Zimmerman was under investigation by the Department of Justice to determine if he'd violated Trayvon Martin's civil rights. Salakia, sir, if I may. Violated his civil rights.
Yeah.
Now, when was the Human Rights Act signed? Was it in the 80s?
The what?
The Human Rights Act by the United Nations. Was that in the 80s?
I'm not sure. I think that might have been the late 70s and 80s by the United Nations.
Come.
Yes.
So violated Trayvon Martin's civil rights. If you ever notice, anytime a black or Hispanic is murdered, they always call it a violation of civil rights.
Yes.
And the reason it's called a violation of civil rights is because blacks and Hispanics are not citizens of this place.
Of course.
All right, not citizens of this place. The Dred Scott decision was never overturned by the federal government. So since we're not citizens of this place, any crime that happens has to be categorized as a violation of civil rights under the Civil Rights Act of the 60s.
Yes. Yes.
But in 2015, the federal agency said the evidence did not meet the high standard for a federal hate crime. Also in 2000,
Hold on. See, y'all got to understand something. We just told you that, the white man will never hold himself guilty. It's written in the Bible. And that hero was not guilty. So in their eyes, that was not a hate crime. Just like Oliver North did nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. He's a patriot for pushing all that damn crack in California. He's a patriot. Mm-hmm. You give somebody else life for an ounce of crack. He sold tons of crack, and he's a hero. And that's the point that we're trying to get Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians to see. It's so obvious, but our people are so caught up in this lie, man. Now, I got a question. Violating his civil rights. Okay. I think part of your civil rights is you have the right to live. Maybe I'm wrong. Damn. You at least have a right to live, correct? Mm-hmm. So what is the hearing? What is the investigation? He killed a man without cause. That was proven. Mm-hmm. But what you said is the point. He killed nobody. If there had been a white dude skateboarding on his way home, he would have been the white child with the Skittles and the Arizona. The innocent little skateboarder didn't deserve to die. But we know what Trayvon was. They talked about he smoked weed. What that got to do with you living? And now weed is legal in many states. Salakia.
Yeah, Salakia, sir, if I may, I got the scripture. Go ahead. The book of Zechariah, chapter 11, verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty.
So this is nothing new. This is a scripture in the Bible, and what they are doing to us is nothing new. Every possessor of the Lord's chosen people have all had the same spirit. That wicked, evil spirit of Satan against our people. And our people we just have this thing to where we won't see it. We're the only people on the earth that has to get over it. No one else does. Anything that happens to us, there's an excuse, there's a reason, get over it. But when something happens to someone now, if you think about it, Ukraine has a decree that they will never forget the invasion of their land. And I can guarantee you 50 years from now, no one's going to tell them to stop crying about the amount of people that died in Ukraine. Because Russia will have Ukraine in oppression. Y'all better watch it. Mm-hmm. Russia will have them oppressed, and America's gonna cry about it. Everybody's gonna cry about it. They're gonna fight their wars, which is white folks' business. They can go ahead. But the point that I'm trying to make is that fight will matter. Tamir Rice, this is a little black kid. You see what I'm saying? But like they said on the news, look at these innocent white children dying. Innocent. Mm-hmm. In a Nazi neighborhood. With children talking about white power and they Nazis. But they're innocent children. It's a lot.
And if I may, Ukraine was founded by former Nazis, wasn't it?
Of course. Of course.
All right, the rest of the scripture. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not.
Let me tell you something, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, woman, and child. This is our book. It is speaking about us. It is living, man. As you Christians love to say, but never live with it. And it's sad because the Bible's telling you that this has happened over and over and over again to the Lord's chosen people because we don't seem to get it. It's a lie.
In May of 2016, Zimmerman sparked fury when he listed the gun he used to shoot Trayvon Martin on an auction website. It eventually sold for $140,000.
That's what I was saying. Now, I love to use OJ because white people hate him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what if OJ came and said, "This is the knife that killed"? He'd get $500,000 for it. You see what I'm saying? Because white people, that's it. They would want the knife that killed her. They hate OJ, but they gotta have the knife. You see what I'm saying? But you know what they do? They would ridicule him so bad.
Mm-hmm.
They'll find a way to take the funds from him.
Mm-hmm.
It'll go to her family. Didn't they win some kind of judgment or something? I think the Goldsteins, whatever their name was, the other man's family won a judgment against him. So all the money would go to them. You see what I'm saying? But it would be an outrage. But with us, it's a no story. Nobody's talking about it.
It's like add on the scripture, sir. Lamentations 4:18. They hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. And so, like I said, if that's not exactly what happened to Trayvon Martin.
That's you took the words out of my mouth. That should sound familiar, Israel. That should sound so familiar. It's such our days are look. And listen, they could go into they're proving it to you. They could go into a grocery store, kill everybody, go into a church, kill people. They could do all these acts against black people because they are black. And the government can't even sign a law that's for blacks against that. An old Asian lady gets slapped on the street, and there's an Asian hate bill. People don't realize what happened. Where's all the Asian hate? Do y'all remember the stories? They was getting slapped, spit on, thrown this. Am I correct? What happened? The media probably stopped covering it, some of it, I'm sure. But for the most part, people start realizing they're giving Buck Rogers dates. When I say Buck Rogers date, anybody, I'm old school. That show was in 2065. That show, you know what I'm saying? They're giving you Buck Rogers dates for your release, man. All because of a crime you committed, a slap. You know, even words will get you 10 years.
So, lucky. And then my last article is from Time Magazine. In January 1918, as the people of Porvenir, Texas slept, a group of Texas Rangers, U.S. Army cavalry soldiers, and white ranchers invaded the town. They abducted 15 Mexican men and boys, took them to a nearby hill overlooking the river, and shot them. The rest of the villagers sought refuge in Mexico. Days later, the executioners burned what was left of the town. They claim, without proof, that their victims had been connected to a recent raid. The rotten law enforcement system we have today is the fruit of institutions like the Texas Rangers that were sold specifically to persecute Black and Hispanics. From the early days of this country, law enforcement officers have conducted themselves with little consequences for their actions because the government has never placed much value on the lives of Blacks and Hispanics. We know in the South they had their roots in the slave patrolling targeting Black Americans. The Texas Rangers, created in the 1820s, are often seen as American heroes, almost mythical in stature, but they were a racist, repressive, and violent force that rained terror on Mexicans and Native Indians as they cleared the way for Western expansion.
The sad thing is you can't have, okay, today you cannot have a Black congressman that says he's a member of the new Black Panther Party. Mm-hmm. You can't. You can't have a congressman that says he's a member of, I don't even want to say the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. You know, give me something else, the don't give a damn militia, whatever. So you can't. They'll go all the way back to the Panthers. Mm-hmm. And their cancel culture will make sure that man doesn't win an election. He'll be ridiculed if he did. Mm-hmm. But if you say you're a Texas Ranger, you're great. Mm-hmm. Didn't we go over Hillary Clinton and Berg before? Hillary Clinton was saying how great and her idol and her mentor was, and he was a grand wizard. Hillary Clinton, the hot sauce woman, said that Senator Byrd was her like ideal. She said he embodied the Democratic caucus. This man, listen, this man is a grand wizard of the Klan. I don't want to hear nothing about what he was. Mm-hmm. He still is a grand wizard of the Klan, dead today. He's in the annals, or whatever you want to call it, of grand wizardom. And she was comfortable enough to say that. You got to understand, she's dealing with a sick people that don't understand nothing, man. And she knows that she can say that, and the other lady, what's her, Margaret, what was her name? Salakia, the eugenics woman.
Sanger?
Yeah, Margaret Sanger. That was her other idol.
Salakia said, if I may, she said that Sanger was one of the most, not beneficial, but most influential women in American history.
That's what I'm saying. So she, a grand wizard, and a white woman with eugenics, and Black people were lined up to vote for her. Am I correct?
Come on, sir.
If she ran for president in the next cycle, Black people will be lined up voting for Hillary Clinton. Because we listen. It's that same thing that happens to that battered woman. Everyone wants her to lead that man. They don't get it. They feel so sad. And all she wants to do is just prove that he's okay. And her eyes talking like this. A big old fat eye, big lips. She beat up. You can see the oppression in her. But she won't listen to you. We're the brothers and sisters that most definitely want you to get out of that marriage. Get out of that relationship with your abuser, because you're not seeing the destruction it's causing you. Just like you tell that battered woman, you're so beautiful. You deserve so much better. You see what I'm saying? Well, we're that big brother that's going to step in. We hands on. We're going to step in and shield you from that abuse. Just don't run back to it behind our back. It's a lot.
They burned villages and murdered innocents. They committed war crimes. Their murders of Mexican Americans made them as feared as the Ku Klux Klan in the Deep South. Now, Salaki, sir, if I may, a group of animals that's being compared to the KKK get a baseball team named after them.
Yes. Yes.
Salaki, sir, that's sick. We're dealing with a sick people.
I mean, they get more than that. They get a state. Now, what people don't understand is that's their state. Unless you some type of a maybe Fed, but that's the highest law enforcement group in Texas. Mm-hmm. They the one. They Sam Houston themselves. You know what I'm saying? Sad but true, man. It's a lot, you know.
In a new book, Cults of Glory, The Bold and Brutal History of the Texas Rangers states from 1915 to 1920, so that's 5 years, 5,000 innocent Mexican Americans were killed by Texas Rangers.
Man, read that one more time, Salaki.
From 1915 to 1920, 5,000 Mexican Americans, innocent Mexican Americans, were murdered by Texas Rangers.
And that's what they'll admit. They'll openly admit that.
The specific agencies may have changed over the years, but racist attitudes and actions in law enforcement have persisted. The Texas Rangers today are a division of the state's Department of Public Safety. But perhaps it's not surprising that some former Rangers joined the Border Patrol when it was formed in the 1920s. Now, Salaki, sir, if I may, the Department of Public Safety is actually related to the origins of the foster system too. The origins of the foster system and
all of that state.
Come.
That's, you know how the state do it. And that's what I mean by the Rangers they're the number one thing in the state of Texas. And the way they're paid, the way that they're looked at, the way that they're treated is nothing like it, man. It's a lot here.
The history of state-sanctioned police violence against Latinos has largely been erased, with many of the stories buried in forgotten graves. Community organizers like the Youth of Justice Coalition have been working tirelessly to bring justice to families of Latinos killed by police and to raise awareness of the ravages of law enforcement on our people. Now, Salaki, sir, for me, you mentioned this before. Anytime Hispanics and natives are victims of police brutality, it goes unheard of. You don't hear about it in the news. You don't hear about it on TV or anything like that.
Yeah. And like I said, that's part of white supremacy. Because now it makes the Hispanic and natives salty towards blacks. Mm-hmm. Because they like, shit, we getting killed by the police too. But they never hear it. Mm-hmm. But they don't know how to direct their anger. Their anger is towards their brothers and sisters, instead of being towards our enemy, who systematically does that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's you know, I just got to say it, man. Every black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, y'all need to hurry up and get into the ISUPK under command. Come freely, because pretty soon it's going to get to the point where you ain't going to have no choice. I'm telling you. And don't come still, but come freely, because you understand that our oppressor is the devil the Bible speaks of, man. I'm telling you, man, it's over and over and over again. Police doing this, police killing, police robbing, police unjustifiably doing this, planting drugs, doing all kinds of things, but are never checked. There's no such thing as a RICO for police who organize and are an organized criminal entity. In each police department, they have white supremacist gangs. This is what the feds say. The feds say it openly. Say that in the vast majority is the terminology they use. The vast majority of all police departments, there are what's considered white supremacist gangs. And in some, like LA, you got to catch a body to get into it. Now, I didn't say this. Everybody that's watching it, Google it. The LA gang, the police gangs in LA will tell their members they got to catch a body so they be trusted. They was over there killing Hispanics. It was one gang that was Hispanic, mostly Hispanic officers, that was white supremacists. I'm telling you. They love the white people. The head commander was white, and they was doing nothing but killing Hispanic brothers. Talking about their insult. Anybody know about LA in the 90s, the 80s, and the 90s? They used to pick you up and drop you off in an enemy hood. Mm-hmm. It's the police. And they're not guilty. They're innocent. Because they're under the cloak of white supremacy.
So like it says right here, the Los Angeles Times, 465 Latinos were murdered by police in the year 2000 in just LA County alone.
Yeah. Yeah. But let me ask y'all a question. You don't hear about that. Because the media wants you to focus on blacks. So now that's going to make the Hispanics hate black people. They never want us to know we're the same people. They want us to be caught into colorism. The Lord's chosen people, we are different complexions, different hair textures. We represent the earth, correct? But it just so happened that our bloodline comes from Jacob, not Esau. So I don't care if you're dark or light, doesn't matter. But the white man knows that the Hispanic and blacks, knowing that, is a problem for white supremacy. Because white supremacy needs one thing. They need volunteers. Mm-hmm. They need someone to feel lesser than. Otherwise, white supremacy what? If the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians know they are God's chosen people, how could white supremacy affect them? They know they're the highest of the high. So how could it affect them? Salakia.
Salakia, sir, if I may, what you're bringing out is so heavy. Is they want us to get, they want us to be enemies with each other.
Of course.
And not looking at who the real enemy is. So we've all heard about the story of Tamir Rice, right?
Yes.
2014, a young child that was murdered by the police for having a toy gun.
Tom.
2014, the same year, Andy Lopez, 13, was killed by a Sonoma County sheriff. Lopez was walking through a vacant lot when an officer mistook his toy gun for an AK-47.
Man, that's heavy. Man, that's heavy. Because no one's heard of that. And we're trying to tell y'all that Black, Hispanic are the same people. But Hispanics, because of, I'm going to tell you something, and I want y'all to remember this. Because a lot of Hispanics consider themselves white. So we've gone over this before. So in a sense, in a very small sense, a lot of them are considered a non-threat. You think they're white. They're not going to rile up the rebels of the Hispanic people. Mm-hmm. That story right there was in LA or wherever it was. Mm-hmm. It didn't reach in Miami where it might have had the Hispanics over there hot. It didn't reach New York. It didn't reach all these different places where the Hispanic people would have been like, man, hold up. Mm-hmm. It didn't do that because they understand the repercussions, man. You let Hispanics be like, you know what? That's like Tamir Rice. They're killing us like the same. You tell black people that story.
And so, like you said, if I may, it's so evil because it was the same year.
Wow.
The same circumstances, a toy gun.
I've never heard that. Great research, Priest, because I've never heard that. I've known, there's another dude that was 16, I know. I don't know if it was 14, the year 14, but there was another one that was 16 that was shot in the back. I just seen a video the other day. Y'all Google police drive-by. They pulled up shooting at innocent Hispanic people in the car. The police did a drive-by. In 2022, the police drove up, did a drive-by, blah, 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 and shot at somebody talking about they had a gun, and it wasn't. It wasn't. And when the police are found to be evil in their actions, they're suspended with pay. Now, Jose and Junebug, Salakia, go to jail, lose their job, family in turmoil, kids don't know where the next meal coming from. And they may be innocent, but who cares? This is a war, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man, and woman. This is a war. We are not just crazily on here talking. Look it up and study it for yourself. This is very important and very serious. I've never heard of that case. That's an outrage. You trying to tell me the same year an Hispanic child was shot with the evidence being a toy gun? That should be national news. And the two should be brought together. And it should be an uproar between the black and Hispanic people. But that's what they don't want. That's what they don't want, Salakia.
And before I yield, sir, I got a scripture. Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were pressed together. Man. And all that took them captive held them fast. They refused to let them go.
And that scripture is so heavy once you know who you are, black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian man. Once you know who you are, you will realize how powerful and heavy that scripture was. And, this is a history class, and that was some great history evidence, but the massacre that was spoken of, the constant hate, it's not new. Now, I pray that you would study and realize that this has been going on for hundreds of years. According to them, almost 500. This is according to the enemy. This is what they will admit. I'm going to try something real quick, y'all. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Let me see if I can do this here. Give me a minute here, man. I'm sharing this screen. Go ahead and read that for me out, if you will.
Come, sir. Regrettably, racial violence has been a distinct part of American history.
It's been what?
Distinct part of American history.
Now, a distinct part of American history. I need y'all to bear with me. We got some things to go over. Go ahead.
Since 1660, while that violence has impacted almost every ethnic and racial group in the United States, it has been a particularly horrific effect on African American life.
Now, if I may, that's part of what I'm talking about. And even blacks, our black brothers will bite into that. Yes, it's been disgusting on Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, by the way. But they want you to focus on the black part because they never want the fact that Hispanics and Natives are the same as us. Continue reading.
Come, sir. Listed below are some of the major incidents of racial violence profiled on blackpast.org.
Okay, so we're going to go into the revolts of the enslaved real quickly. I'm going to run down this whole list. Antebellum urban violence, Civil War, Reconstruction, and post-Reconstruction era violence. Look at the incidents that they'll admit. Race riots from 1900s to the 1960s. Look. Urban uprising, 1960 to the 2000. Look. College campus violence. Look. 21st century racial violence. Look, man. How many classes can we do on this? And if I may, let's start with the I'm going to butcher this, but let's start with the San Miguel de Guadalupe slave rebellion, 1526. This is what I mean by almost 500 years ago.
Come, sir. San Miguel de Guadalupe is a former Spanish colony founded in 1526 by Lucas Vasquez de Leon. It was the third settlement in North America, north of Mexico.
North of what?
North of Mexico.
Go ahead.
In the early 1500s, Spaniards were conducting expeditions to the area, now known as South Carolina and Georgia, to kidnap Native Americans.
Kidnap who?
Kidnap Native Americans.
Go ahead.
As slaves.
As what?
As slaves.
1500s. 1500s. The natives were captured as slaves. I want everybody to read this and do your own research. You have to understand our judgment, our destruction is because we are the same people. Continue reading.
In 1521, a wealthy planter, lawyer, and magistrate, Lucas Vasquez de Leon, dispatched an expedition led by Francisco Cordillo to the Bahamas to capture natives.
To capture who?
Capture natives.
Go ahead.
And Gordillo returned with 70 Indians.
Wait a minute. 70 who?
Indians.
Go ahead.
Leon took a recently baptized Indian.
A what?
Recently baptized Indian.
So this is Christianity, by the way. A recently baptized Indian. Go ahead.
With him to Spain to speak with the court chronicler about his homeland and people, as well as tales of valuable gems found in the region. After meeting with the king, Allion received a royal patent giving him permission from King Charles V and the Royal Supreme Council of Indies to establish a settlement on the eastern seaboard in 1523.
Of 1523. Man, let me tell you something. I want to talk to my black brothers and sisters right now. You say that the natives got reparations. Well, we can't be mad if they did. They deserved it. They was enslaved. Am I reading this wrong? This is historical fact, man. The history of these animals have been animals to Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, not just Black people. There can't be no big eyes and little U's when it comes to oppression. You are either oppressed or not. And we are oppressed, so was our Hispanic and Native brothers. Continue reading, Salakia.
Come, sir.
Hold on, Salakia. I don't want to. Yeah, let's finish reading this one. On the other ones, we'll just do an overview. I might go over the Igbo one, but we'll try to do an overview because this right here this is going to be some of the things we go over during the lecture. But I just had to hit it tonight, y'all. Go ahead.
In April 1525, Elion hired Pedro de Cuello.
Who?
Pedro de Cuello.
Keep reading.
Who set sail with 2 boats and 60 men to explore the new region.
Now, let me tell y'all something. They love to tell you or make it seem like the natives, the blacks, and we were so weak. 60 men could never come into a nation of warriors. Because they'll tell you that they was warriors, correct? Thousands of them. So how was 60 men able to fandangle them, which they did? October 22nd, man. Come on.
When Cuello returned successfully, Elion began to assemble a crew and selected passengers for the impending new settlement.
Why? It was 60, right? Continue read.
The fleet consisted of 6 ships, approximately 600 to 700 people, supplies, livestock that included pigs, cows, sheep, and 100 horses. Among the passengers were approximately...
Let's reach down. Let's go down here to September.
On September 29th, 1526.
Let's go right here, Allion.
After building a replacement ship, Allion and his fleet moved 200 miles south. Upon landing, immediately begun building houses and a church.
And a what?
And a church.
Go ahead.
On September 29th, 1526, the settlement was christened.
It was what?
Christened.
Go ahead.
San Miguel de Guadalupe, sometimes called San Miguel de Guadalupe, a reference to the local Guale tribe.
Which they do. They always name something after they're conquered.
The settlers quickly suffered from dysentery, hunger, cold, and Indian attack. On October 18th, Allion died, and leadership of the settlement was assumed by Captain Francisco Gomez, who wanted to stay at the settlement and wait for fresh supplies to arrive. Another faction, led by Gaines Donsel and his lieutenant, Pedro de Bazan, wanted to leave the settlement and return home. Donsel and a group of supporters seized and arrested Gomez and others supporting him, locked them in Donsel's home. When Donsel and Bazan set out to ambush other opponents, the enslaved Africans...
Wait. The who?
The enslaved Africans...
Go ahead.
...set fire to Donsel's home.
Now, let me ask you a question. Why are they talking about enslaved Africans now? They were dealing with natives. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about enslaved Africans. Continue reading.
Freed Gomez and the other captives. The enslaved Africans to live with the local Native, escaped to live with the local Native Americans.
Go ahead.
This incident is regarded as the first slave rebellion in mainland North America. By July 1527, only 150 of the original settlers survived and returned home to Hispaniola.
Let me tell y'all something, just real quick, if I may. That detail is telling you a story of Black Hispanics being together. Where did the Africans come from? I'm serious. This is in the 1500s.
Mhm.
This was so-called uncharted land, correct?
Okay.
Where did the African slaves come from? I want y'all to tell me the BS story that they give you. And if when you study the story, it goes on to even tell you, in some instances, they couldn't even tell the difference.
Mhm.
They didn't know if they was so-called Africans or natives.
Mhm.
Why? Because some natives were Black. Some of the so-called Africans were of a lighter complexion.
Mhm.
Now, everybody says that a Black woman can have a light-skinned baby. So weren't none of the slaves light? The only slaves that were light were because of white people? Man, come on, man. But that's a whole nother subject, and I'm not going to go there. So we have so many. The Bacon's Rebellion. Come to the lecture October 22nd, and I'm going to go over more of these just to prove white supremacy. You're going to see the same page here, and I'm going to click on it and do the same thing. Now, let's go a little bit of the Igbo landing. Yeah, so they got a picture, and they have an Igbo landing, and it's called 1803's mass suicide. Mass suicide. Now let's remember, this is 1803. How much reading is that? That's a lot of reading. Let's get through it though. Salaki.
Come, sir. Igbo Landing is a historic site at Dunbar Creek in St. Simons Island, Glenn County, Georgia.
Glenn, where is it?
Glenn County, Georgia.
So we're in Georgia. I don't want to make no mistake about these places where we're at. I'm dealing with America because we understand that on the different islands there were Blacks, and different people. We've already established that. But why are we still dealing with the same people in Georgia that they dealt with? We'll go over Columbus's voyage. The same people. But 22nd, come on.
In 1803, one of the largest mass suicides of enslaved people took place when Igbo captives from what is now Nigeria.
Now Nigeria, right? What does Nigeria mean? Man, look. Don't forget you have Nigeria and you have another country called Niger. But this is Nigeria. Continue reading.
Were taken to the Georgia coast.
The where?
The Georgia coast.
Go ahead.
In May 1803, the Igbo and other West African captives arrived in Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia. Go ahead.
On a slave ship, the Wanderer. They were purchased for an average of $100 each. Somebody
out there watching, type in $100. How much is $100? Well, see what 1803 $100 is in today's world. Go ahead. No, it ain't nowhere near that much. Go ahead.
They were purchased for an average of $100 each by slave merchants John Cooper and Thomas Spalding.
Thomas who?
Spalding.
Okay, basketball fans. Go ahead.
To be resold to plantations on nearby St. Simons The chained slaves were packed to the vessel, the York, which would take them to St. Simons. The voyage, approximately 75 Igbo slaves arose in rebellion, took control of the ship, drowned their captors, and in the process caused the grounding of the ship in Dunbar Creek.
I believe they made a movie about this. What was the name of that movie? There was a movie made about this, I believe. But they whitewashed that movie so bad. If anybody in the chat know, let me know. Go ahead.
The sequence of events that occurred next remains unclear.
What?
Remains unclear.
I bet it does. Go ahead.
It is known only that the Igbo marched ashore singing, led by their high chief. Then at his direction, they walked into the marshy waters of Dunbar Creek, committing mass suicide.
I thought it was unknown. See, why are you reading this? I'm reading this to show you how to read white supremacy. It said it is known only that the Igbo, listen, the sequence of events that occurred next remains unclear. But it's known only that the Igbo marched ashore singing. How do you know they were singing? Led by their high chief. I didn't know there was a high chief. Then at his direction, they walked into the marshy waters of Dunbar Creek, committed mass suicide. Roswell King, a white overseer on the nearby Pierce Butler plantation, wrote the first account of the incident. So a slave master said they committed mass suicide. They just got through drowning everybody and winning. Why would they kill themselves?
So like I said, if I may, it reminds me of the brother they just found recently rolled up in a high school wrestling match.
How did you know where I'm going with this? Is it got anything to do with you being a priest? That's what they do. Since the 1800s. And of course, before then, their narrative is always, if we did something, we had to be cowards in the end. They done did all this. In 1500s, they went and hooked up with the natives. After freeing and doing all that, they didn't kill themselves. But in the 1800s, this is Savannah's story. There's a good old Georgian boys. They killed themselves. They was cowards. Correct? Let me tell y'all something. This is, I want to go over this again. Racial violence in the United States since 1526. Let me tell you something. This right here is a 2-hour class on the revolts of the slaves, if not more. I can do a 4-hour class, 5-hour class on all of this because it gets deep quickly. In 2001, there were riots in Cincinnati. Who heard of that? We right over here in Louisville, Kentucky. I ain't never heard of no 2001 Cincinnati riots. The Cincinnati riot was a 4-day period of civil disorder that occurred in response to the shooting death of 19-year-old Timothy Thomas by Cincinnati police patrolman Stephen Roach. That's civil unrest, race riots. Let's mini, mo. Let's go to Philadelphia. Why not? Philadelphia, 2 slain, 20 injured as 5,000 fight race war in South Philadelphia. The 1918 race riot in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania began on July 26, 1918, 2 days after an African-American woman, Adela Bond, moved into her new home in a primarily white area of South Philadelphia. See, listen, Nigga go home is it's not nothing new. They have constantly been fighting us. They have constantly been attacking us. They've constantly been trying to destroy us, man. It's a constant. It's nothing new. It's nothing new, man. So don't think we crazy because we do our research and we never forget. We never forget. We're not telling the black man, Hispanic man. That's not what we're doing. Go to Proverbs 22 and 16, if you will. I got a few couple scriptures, man, and then I'm going to end.
22 and 16, sir.
Yeah, Proverbs 22 and 16, Baba Kusha.
Come, sir. The book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 16. He that oppresseth the poor.
He that does what?
Oppresseth the poor to increase his riches.
Everything our enemy has done has been to increase the gold, the slavery, the diamonds. That slavery is free labor. It is to increase his riches. Go ahead.
And he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want.
You're going to want very soon. It's coming. You are so high up you can't see yourself fall. Go ahead.
That's like it, sir, if I may. It said, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches. I mean, we see it nowadays, if I may. How many punishments for a criminal offense is a fine? That's only to oppress poor people.
Of course. A speeding ticket. You don't get the mail in time, that turned into a warrant. That's $300-400 more. It's a racket. It's a business. And give me Luke 4 and 18, Baba Kusha.
Come, sir.
And I'm gonna tell you, Salaki, I'm gonna tell y'all something. When everybody say, why do we keep it up? Why do we keep talking about it? How come we can't just move on? How come we can't get over it? Read that.
Come, sir. This is in red. The book of Luke, chapter 4, verse 18.
Go ahead.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me.
Go ahead.
Because he that anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, he had sent me to heal the brokenhearted.
Go ahead.
To preach deliverance to the captives.
To the who?
To the captives.
Go ahead.
And recovering the sight to the blind. To set at liberty them that are bruised.
Them that are all bruised. Let me tell you something. Those are Christ's words, correct? Now, if you are Christian, you're supposed to be Christ-like. You're supposed to live by these words. The Lord is supposed to anoint you, Salakia, to preach the gospel to the poor, not take from the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, the downtrodden. How do you heal people? You give them the truth, which is the medicine. You are white supremacists, Christians. That's what you are. You do the same thing, Aleon, Valquez, whatever the hell his name was. You do the same thing he did. You find the weak, the downtrodden. You build a church. You indoctrinate them after destroying them. And you oppress them. You are a Spaniard in spirit. Pastor, your Christian church, you are the Spaniards. You are the Englishmen. You are the colonist. You are preaching their doctrine towards your people, man. When Christ's doctrine was different, Salakia, Go ahead. Go ahead to 19, Salakia.
Salakia, 4:19.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it, Salakia. Go ahead and give me Deuteronomy 28 and 64.
Come, sir.
The book of Luke, chapter 19, reads, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. So Christ is saying to preach deliverance to the captives. Preach deliverance to the captives. Now, let me ask you a question. When Christ was on this earth, we know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, Christian, were the Israelites considered in slavery? They were basically free. They walked around, they did everything they had to do. They had their own cities. You know, they worked, correct, for a living wage. So we know they was in slavery, but you as Christians, you could consider that not slavery, correct? So what captives of Christ talking about? He came for his people. So in the eyes of Christ, his people were captive because they were captive by your religion, man, by your ways. So the true followers of Christ today has to get our people out of Christianity. We have to get our Hispanic brothers out of Catholicism because that is the destruction of Christ, not the way of Christ, man. Christ fought against them. Go ahead and read that when you got it, Baba Bashar.
Khan, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people.
Among who?
Among all people.
Go ahead.
From the one end of the earth, even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods.
Shall do what?
Serve other gods.
See, listen. I want you guys to study history. Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians are the people who have served other gods. I mean, who else are they talking about? Even the Vikings who turned Christian, they all didn't. We all turned away. If it was 1, 2, 3, 4 that didn't, just to keep the history going, the vast majority of us did. Y'all better study the Aztecs and listen. I don't want to hear this Olmec stuff. Y'all better study the Olmecs. Study them. Study the Inca. These were a people who came from somewhere else and had a different God. They accepted a new God. Isn't that what they say? But listen, I don't need the white man to translate it. It's in their art. They got the man on the craft, Salakia. I know I'll be animated, but they got the man on the craft that taught them everything. But there's something about being scattered and being Israelite. That's why there's pyramids all over the earth. We're the builders. There's pyramids in China. There's pyramids in Europe. And guess where else there's pyramids? In America. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like I said, if I may, what you're bringing out is so heavy. Not only do you have the pyramids in the Americas, you also see that dog that's worshipped, the same as the Anubis in Egypt.
Yes.
You got the All-Seeing-Eye that's worshipped
yes.
in the Americas, just like in Egypt.
Because those people were in Egypt. What are you talking about, Asar? Did y'all know that there was Egyptian pottery found over here? The Aztecs had brothers and sisters. They didn't kill them. They had their pottery. The Aztecs had some brothers and sisters that knew where they were, that came to visit them. Black and Hispanics have always fought through this, and we will fight through it again. Why? Because in those days, I'm gonna say something, and I want y'all to study it. There was a commanding general Johanna of that day that kept the truth. That's why it came all the way up through Mexico. That's why it came all the way up in North America, all the way up in Canada. Y'all better read about the camps in Nova Scotia, where that brother went out there, had all the freed slaves and all that, and they finding all of this Templar stuff on his land. Y'all better study it. There was a commanding general Johanna of that day. The Lord, the Lord gave us commanding general Johanna so that, I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about our 7 heads, because that was, of course, the beginning. But if you think about it, that could have died. That could have died. If Commanding General Johanna didn't keep this truth, I hate to say it, but niggas will be wearing purple. And bed sheets and goddamn pillowcases, yelling on the streets with no type of organization and strength, because we would have been under the white man, the Jewish man. Salakia. Once again, y'all, I'm gonna end this class. I know it was a lot of like hit and miss. I want y'all to continue watching the classes. I'm gonna keep going over this type of stuff leading into the lecture, because when I showed y'all that list, there are situations that happen that y'all will be like, what? That was the Watts riots. That Tuskegee? That happened before? And what? The slaves and the natives got together and had one of the richest cities? A port. They had to call in the United States Army. Come on, man. Our people was this close. But maybe the Lord wasn't with them. Maybe the Lord wasn't with them then. And that is our job, to get the Lord with us. With that, I'm going to pass this class over to Priest and Officer Howard Moore to get into the announcements.
Security announcements. We have the ISUPK. It started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Room for a new brother or sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They're to be saluted only. They're here to share themselves with the world. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. Another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Salakia. Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10. A tenth in the Hebrew, 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Priest fund, free will offering, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocations, Day of Atonement, Tuesday sundown to Wednesday sundown. We'll do a courtesy salute. Imagine Shabbat. Imagine Rock.
How about Shimmy? How about Rock?
pass this now.